The relationship between the United States and China is a complex tapestry, woven from threads of both cooperation and competition, like two giants sharing a small, crowded room, each trying to carve out space for themselves. At times, these giants work together, trading vast amounts of goods and building enormous wealth on both sides of the Pacific. Walk into any American store and you'll find countless products stamped "Made in China." This trade has not only filled shelves in the US, but also helped lift hundreds of millions of people in China out of poverty, transforming its economy into a global powerhouse. Yet beneath this economic partnership, their core values often clash. The US is a democracy, prizing individual rights and freedoms, while China is a one-party state that prioritizes stability and collective progress above all else. These fundamental differences in governance and ideology fuel ongoing tension and mutual suspicion. The US frequently criticizes China's human rights record, calling for reforms and transparency. China, in turn, accuses the US of meddling in its internal affairs and undermining its sovereignty. In recent years, this rivalry has only intensified. Both nations are rapidly expanding their militaries, investing in advanced technology, and vying for influence, not just in Asia, but across the globe. The South China Sea has become a major flashpoint. China claims almost the entire region, building artificial islands and military bases, while the US insists on freedom of navigation for all nations, sending warships to challenge China's claims. Now, warships from both sides operate dangerously close, raising the risk of accidental clashes or deliberate confrontations. Today, August 3rd, 2025, those simmering tensions have finally boiled over, erupting into a crisis that the world has long feared. For years, experts have warned that a single miscalculation or misunderstanding could spark a conflict between these superpowers. That moment has now arrived, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The rivalry, spanning economics, ideology and military might, has entered a dangerous new phase, with both sides unwilling to back down. The small room the giants once shared is now a battleground, echoing with the sounds of confrontation and uncertainty. Around the world, people watch anxiously, holding their breath as events unfold, knowing that the outcome will affect every corner of the globe. What happens next could reshape the global order, altering alliances, economies, and the balance of power for generations to come. The stakes have never been higher, and the world waits to see what the future holds. What pushed China to act? Rising nationalism, economic pressure, and a misjudgment of American resolve. The Chinese dream, national rejuvenation after a century of humiliation, has fueled pride and aggressive nationalism. With economic growth slowing and youth discontent rising, Beijing sought a distraction. A recent US Navy operation near China's man-made islands was seen as a direct challenge. Hardliners in the PLA saw this as the final straw. They believed America, divided and weary, would back down after a short, sharp strike. It was a massive gamble, based on a flawed reading of American will. The stage was set for confrontation. The attack came without warning on July 28, 2025. In the early morning haze, the vast expanse of the South China Sea seemed calm, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered, waiting to erupt. The USS Gerald R. Ford and its escorts were conducting what should have been routine operations, patrolling international waters and projecting American power in the region. Sailors went about their duties, unaware that history was about to change. Suddenly, high-speed radar contacts appeared on screens, China's DF-21D carrier-killer missiles streaking toward the fleet. US defences sprang into action, intercepting many of the incoming threats, but despite their efforts, some missiles broke through the shield. The USS John Finn was critically damaged, its hull torn open, alarms blaring as sailors scrambled to contain the flooding and fires. The Ford's flight deck was torn apart, debris scattered across the once pristine surface, rendering flight operations nearly impossible. Chaos erupted as crews fought fires, tended to the wounded, and struggled desperately to save their ships from sinking beneath the waves. Then, as if the missile barrage wasn't enough, Chinese drones and stealth jets swooped in, launching a second wave of cruise missiles, targeting the crippled fleet. US F-35s scrambled to intercept, engaging in desperate dogfights high above the chaos, their pilots pushing their machines to the limit. The sky became a deadly ballet of jets and missiles, contrails and explosions painting a picture of modern warfare's ferocity. The attack was swift and brutal, designed to deliver a knockout blow before the US could fully respond, leaving devastation in its wake. But the Ford, though battered and scarred, survived the onslaught, a testament to the resilience and courage of her crew. The world watched in shock and disbelief as the balance of power in the Pacific seemed to shift overnight, sending ripples of fear through capitals around the globe. The message was unmistakable. China was willing to challenge the US head-on, no longer content to remain in the shadows of global power. The era of uneasy peace was over, replaced by a new and dangerous uncertainty that threatened to engulf the entire region. War had arrived in the Pacific, and nothing would ever be the same again. In the aftermath of the devastating attack, the US Navy was bloodied but not broken. The shockwaves of the assault rippled through the fleet, but the spirit of the sailors endured. The USS John Finn was barely afloat, battered and listing dangerously. The USS Gerald R. Ford, though crippled by the onslaught, managed to survive against all odds, her crew rallying to keep her afloat. The human toll was staggering. Dozens of American sailors lost their lives, and hundreds more were wounded, many with life-changing injuries. The cost was felt in every corner of the fleet. Their faces soon filled TV screens across the nation, turning distant headlines into personal heartbreak for millions of families and viewers at home. Images of the battered and burning ships shocked the world, spreading rapidly across social media and news outlets, fueling outrage and fear. In response, US forces struck back with determination, downing several Chinese jets and drones in fierce aerial battles over the open sea. The PLA paid a heavy price for their aggression, losing aircraft and pilots, but despite their efforts, they failed to sink the Ford. The battered carrier, scarred but unbowed, became a powerful symbol of American resilience and resolve in the face of adversity. Global markets plunged into chaos, world leaders convened emergency meetings, and America's allies swiftly condemned the attack, raising their military alert levels. Shipping lanes across the Pacific shut down, halting vital trade and leaving ports eerily silent, with container ships anchored and cranes idle. In Beijing, officials watched the crisis unfold with growing unease. Their hoped-for quick victory had instead triggered a global crisis. The gamble had failed, and the world was watching. The world now stood on the brink, as the United Nations scrambled to respond, and news of the escalating conflict dominated headlines everywhere. The consequences of this clash were just beginning to unfold, casting a long shadow over the future and leaving the world holding its breath. China's attack was meant to show strength, but it backfired spectacularly. Beijing misunderstood America, mistaking division for weakness. History shows nothing unites the US like an unprovoked attack. Instead of paralysis, the strike created a wave of patriotic fury and unity. China also underestimated the world's reaction. Allies rallied to America's side. NATO invoked collective defense. Japan, South Korea, Australia, and India formed a united front. Sanctions hit China hard. Global companies began pulling out. The Chinese dream, built on trade and stability, was now in jeopardy. The short-term military gain brought long-term strategic and economic ruin. China's leadership faced a crisis of legitimacy. The world order was upended. In the US, shock quickly turned to unity. Political rivals stood together, condemning the attack. American flags appeared everywhere. The fallen sailors became national heroes. Vigils and tributes swept the country. The debate was not if, but how to respond. The president addressed the nation, vowing to hold China accountable. Military forces were mobilized, new carrier groups and bombers headed to the Pacific. Bipartisan support surged. America spoke with one voice, demanding justice. The attack, meant to expose weakness, awakened a sleeping giant. The nation's resolve was clear. The world took notice. In China, the government's narrative of victory quickly unraveled. State media celebrated, but news of global backlash and economic turmoil spread. Stock markets crashed. Companies halted operations. The promise of prosperity was suddenly at risk. Fear replaced pride, especially among the urban middle class and business elite. Whispers of dissent grew, rare protests appeared in major cities. People held up blank sheets of paper, a silent protest. Beijing's leadership was divided. Hardliners wanted escalation, others feared collapse. Cracks appeared in the Communist Party's facade. The attack, meant to show unity, exposed deep divisions. Forces of discontent threatened the regime's stability. China faced internal turmoil as never before. The cost of aggression was becoming clear. July 28, 2025 will be remembered as the day the 21st century truly began. The US-China relationship is now broken. Trust is gone. A new, more dangerous Cold War has begun. Economic ties make separation painful for all. The risk of escalation is high. The Pacific is a military chessboard. Global trade is disrupted. Recession looms. Nations must choose sides, democracy or authoritarianism. New alliances form, old tensions reignite. International institutions are paralyzed. China is isolated but still powerful and unpredictable. The US and allies are unified, but the path ahead is perilous. The world of yesterday is gone. Now we live on the edge, hoping for wisdom and restraint.